Okay, it's the end of the session. I am here with, you can let the dogs go now, by the way. The little dog that you heard before, Baxter. Baxter, come here, Baxter. This is Baxter, who was barking all like crazy in the previous video. All right, so Baxter, Millie,
Newt,
and Lenny over here, and you saw Lenny in the above video. This is their roadmap to success. Baxter was not let out, and he was barking the whole time. He is an ankle biter. He bit me a couple times, and it's really only when I'm moving around. So when you have guests come over, just tell them, before you get up, make sure you let me know. Like if people sneeze or cough, he's probably going to bark at them. He thinks he's in charge. Actually, I think they all think they're in charge. That's
Millie.
Millie evidently acts like she's in charge when other people are not here. But this is just 5 dogs. 2 of them are visiting team. And there's 2 of them on the visiting team that kind of are here for a couple of days every 2 weeks or so. So basically, let's summarize the stuff we went over. The first thing we talked about was exercise. It's the first thing I talk to all my clients about. Most people don't exercise there enough. And the guilty answer almost all my clients say is not enough when I ask them how much exercise does their dog get. Remember to get Cosequin for him. For both of these guys, I think would be benefit from Cosequin. Like I said, try it for a month. And if you're not seeing a difference, then in one of the dogs, then just keep it for the other. Okay, so these guys are older. They're not going to need as much exercise. Baxter is definitely his prime. He's a high energy dog. He needs a lot of exercise. Lenny, same boat. Millie, not so much. But they need exercise, just not to the extent. Baxter and Lenny are going to need the most. So the guardian walks them when she can, but there's 5 dogs. It's hard to walk 5 dogs. And it's best to do whatever training or whatever it is best to do it. Hey, buddy. If I pet him when he's jumping up on me, that's rewarding. Even looking at him just there was somewhat rewarding. So basically, it's easier to walk your dog separately, but there's not enough hours in the day sometimes, especially if we have 5 dogs. And we're in Iowa, and it's going to be cold and blustery and snowy, and we're not going to want to be outside for a lot of the next couple of months. So one of the things I do is a doggy stairmaster. I show the dog I have a treat. I go to the top of the stairs, and I throw the treat to the bottom of the stairs. When the dog licks it up while at the bottom of the stairs, I assign a command word that means to go downstairs. I like using fun command words, so often I'll say like Alabama or Cuba or Venezuela or Jamaica or something like that, Australia. So anytime you give the dog a treat, whether it's this exercise or any other exercise for the rest of the dog's life, and this is for puppies, adult dogs, you always want to put the treat in their mouth first, and they should hear the command word immediately after. Remember, they hear the first word you say the most, so don't say good sit, just say sit. So what I do is, let's say I'm going to say Alabama. I throw it to the bottom of the stairs, and then only one dog should be free at the time when we're doing this. So let's say Lenny runs downstairs and licks it up. I say Alabama, and then I show him, hey, I got the treats, and he runs to the top of the stairs. I give him another treat. Maybe I call this one Alaska. And I throw another one down, and up and down he goes. I count each down, up as one revolution or one rep. And so I keep on throwing with an empty stomach until Lenny is like, you're crazy. I've been down there 123 times. It's not worth it going down there anymore. Now, every dog's going to have a different, unique number, and that's okay for now. And so basically, you don't know what the maximum number is. Hey, Lenny, come. That's passive training. We'll talk about that later. But he doesn't know what the we don't know what the maximum number is until we max him out. So with an empty stomach, keep throwing those treats until he says, I'm done, and now we know his maximum number is. We want to exercise him 50 to 75% of that maximum number multiple times a day. Dogs sleep, these guys are probably sleeping 13 to 15 hours a day, so they need exercise. After they wake up, they've recharged the batteries, and they need to burn that energy. One of the first things I talked to the guardian about was really they get a lot of energy roughhousing with each other, either inside or outside, but that's what they're practicing doing, and they practice going beyond certain thresholds. I like to say dogs have 10 levels of energy. 0 is asleep, 10 is as crazy as you've seen the dog. So level 5 energy would be the midway point. So whether the dogs are fighting or having a good time or whatever it is, any activity they're doing where they pass level 5, you should give them a timeout. If you want them to calm down, it's a lot harder to calm down from a 9 energy to a 1 than it is for 5 to a 1. It's half the distance. So helping your dog practice calming down is a very, very valuable skill that most of us never do. We just let the dogs go out of, keep going and keep going and keep going. Right now, Baxter's been in the kennel all day long. Baxter, let me show you Baxter's face. Baxter, come here, buddy. You want a treat? I do have some of these treats for you. Come here. So if you're going to see his mouth in a minute, it's going to open up. I'll give him one treat. Well, of course, he's going to go away. But he's breathing heavy, so his mouth is open. When dogs are overly stressed or out of breath, they open their mouth, and we interpret that as a smile. But often it's not a smile. Often it's the antithesis of a smile. So we see the dog gets all excited, and we come home and we're like, oh, he's happy to see me, and we get him all worked up. Are you happy to see me? And we get him more and more out of balance. If you're going to have to do something, make an important life decision, you don't want to be excited. You want to be calm, balanced, and focused on what it is that you need to do. Sit. So for the dogs, let's not get them excited. When you come home, if they're excited, pretend like they're not even there. Just walk through them. And as soon as they get excited, or as soon as they calm down, reach for them. Now, if I reach for the dog, as soon as I start reaching the dog, recognize it's going to start wiggling, get excited again. I don't say no, because that's validating to the dog. What I want to do is use operant conditioning to communicate to the dog that your excitement level spike causes me to leave you alone. So I start reaching for the dog. As soon as they get excited, it starts wiggling. I pull my arm back, and I continue what I was doing. It'll take a lot of starts and stops, and it's harder because there's 5 dogs here. So if you're going to do this, I would maybe have you arrange it so when you call your partner when you're on your way home, and put 4 of the dogs away so only 1 dog's out. So that way you're only dealing with that 1 dog's energy. Now, it's still going to cascade with the other dogs in the kennel, crash, but passive training. But basically, it's going to be easier. And after a while, the dog realizes, when I'm calm, I'm very attractive to the humans. They want to pet me. As soon as I get excited, it's like I'm invisible, man. Yeah. So what is the behavior the dog's going to offer? Now, it's important to remember, good attention, bad attention, same thing, just about. So if my intention is to get my goal is to get your attention, I come to you, you ignore that. I sit in front of you, ignore that. I lay down, ignore it. I bring a toy and drop it, and you ignore that. But boy, as soon as I start barking, you correct. As soon as I start biting the guest, you correct. Well, if my goal is to get your attention, I don't care if it's good attention or bad attention, I'm going to do the things that you don't want. Many people train their dogs to misbehave. Now, it's also important to remember that rules are not negative. We look at them as negative because, hey, sit. Because of how they're introduced us when we're a little kid and we're told no, 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 that's against the rules. So we look at rules as a negative, but they're really not. Enforcing rules is a great way to create a healthy leader-follower dynamic. Before we get to that, let's finish up the exercise part. So for each dog separately, throw the treats up and down the stairs, unless there's a mobility issue. And if you're unsure about that, check with your vet before you do this. We don't want to do any harm. So for each dog, you now, after the first day, you know what their maximum number is. So his maximum number might be 12. Her maximum number might be 10. Baxter's might be 110. That's okay. We want to max them out so we know what the maximum number is. We want to exercise them 50 to 75% of that maximum number multiple times a day. Now, throwing the treats up and down the stairs, for the highest energy dog, probably Baxter and Lenny, probably going to take about 5 to 7 minutes. To get the equivalent on a walk would be like a half an hour or longer. And you have 5 dogs. You got to watch them all separate. That's 2.5 hours. Most people do not have that kind of time. But if each dog is only 5 minutes, and they're probably less than that, some of them are older, you're talking about to exercise all 5 dogs, if you have them all at once and you're doing 5 minutes, maximum of 25 minutes, less than 1 walk. And probably a lot less than that, because some of the older dogs probably only need a minute, 2 minutes. So now you have an activity that you can do in the ice storm, and it's raining, nighttime, daytime. You have somebody coming over for construction. Well, Baxter should be exercised more. He should be exercised close to his 100% rate. Then we want to put him in, have him relax. Anytime the dogs are exercising, they need at least 10 minutes to calm down and recover before the person comes in, or you go for a ride, or whatever the next step is. So basically, if we have somebody coming over and we exercise the heck out of Baxter, he's going to have a lot less fight because he's just burned off his energy in a productive way. So some other things you can do is have them chase a laser. Some dogs, you shouldn't do that if they whine, whimper, or get anxious. Don't do it. Some of these dogs, like Lenny was chasing it great. But there's only so much you get out of that, so be careful about using laser. Another thing to do is playing fetch. It's a wonderful way to exercise. Walk is great, and on the walks, the guardian here knows to let the dog sniff. Most people, we're thinking about getting back home and completing our circuit, so we want the dog to go. We think of the walking as the exercise. For dogs, actually sniffing is more stimulating and more physically draining than the energy output of actually walking. So if you combine them, now you're really making, and it's also calming for them. And Baxter definitely needs to learn to calm, and anything we can do to help him calm down is a good thing. Now also, if a dog works for its food, that can boost their self-esteem. Sit. So he sat, I can't get to him, but I can say sit in concert with him sitting down within that 3-second window. Remember, dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds. But it has to be repeated over and over consistently. So basically, the snuffle mat would be a great thing for Lenny and Baxter to actually, because they're the highest energy dogs. So basically, order a couple of those on Amazon or Chewy. You can wash them in between meals. Dishwasher are safe, a lot of them. And you kind of put the food in there and hide it, and ask me if you have any questions, but probably videos on how to use a snuffle mat. It's really easy, just dump it and hide the food in there. And then they've got to use their nose to find it and move it out to the side, and then look at it, it slows down the eating process. They are stimulating their nose, which is draining of energy and calming for them. They're working for their food, so it boosts their self-esteem. It accomplishes a whole bunch of things simultaneously. Let me see, what else? You can also use an Omega treat ball or treat dispensing toys. The more of those the dog works for its food, again, it's a nice way to help it see a healthy leader-follower dynamic, but practice self-restraint and a whole bunch of other things. Now, I would recommend, I didn't see the kitchen. The kitchen has kind of a big entryway. So if you want to feed the dogs in the kitchen, right now they eat out of the same bowl. I want each dog to have its own bowl. And then basically you get a piece of cardboard or something you put up so you can kind of make, instead of the wall being this or the entryway being this way, if you slide cardboard this far, now I only have to defend a smaller area. And you can use those escalating consequences that I talked to you about to enforce that and keep the dogs out. Sometimes there's too many. Sometimes you might only have two dogs out and help establish that behavior early. Now, if you want, remember, there you go. So yes, you caught yourself. Dog jumped up and the guardian was going to pet and she caught herself. So if you go to my website, dogarmproblems.com, and click on where it says dog training tips, if you're looking at a desktop, on the right side of the page, there's a search box. If you're looking at a phone, it's the bottom of the page. And careful, there's an email sign up too. Put in the search box invisible or invisible boundary, and it'll explain how to establish invisible boundary. You can also search for structured feeding, where I basically have the dogs eating one at a time and establish invisible boundary. I'm doing two things at once. But eating is the most important activity for dogs, so if we can add some structure to the meal time, I think it's really going to help create a hierarchy in the pack. I normally start feeding based on the age of the dogs, but right now Baxter is the oldest dog, but he's the least best behaved. So we'd probably feed him lower. I would probably feed Lenny first, and then Millie, right? Mm-hmm. Millie next. Millie's timid, so she may not want to, but Millie, this will help her feel more comfortable because the other dogs are not allowed near me when I'm eating, so I get to kind of eat in peace. And then when Millie gets done, she leaves the kitchen, and then we invite Baxter in. When Baxter gets done eating, he leaves, and then we're going to invite probably, he'd probably eat last. What's his counterpart's name? Sadie. Sadie would eat next, and when Sadie's eating, he's not allowed. So only one dog's allowed in the kitchen at a time. This way the humans are demonstrating their leadership by controlling the situation. The other dogs don't feel intimidated by having another dog near me, and they're practicing self-restraint. And eventually, if you do it the way that I show you in the videos, you're not even standing there. There's nothing but air between them and their bowl, and they're waiting for permission. Try to arrange it so they're not walking by a full bowl to get to their bowl, though. And after that dog, if he sniffs and then walks away, as soon as they walk away, pick up that bowl, dump it empty, put it back down. They'll usually go and lick the empty bowl. Then they have to leave the area. And then we call the next dog in. Eventually, some of the dogs crash. Go ahead and celebrate that. Pet. Oh. There you go. Good job, under the chin. So basically, after a while, they'll get in the habit of doing it. It won't take as much effort. It's going to be, it'll take some effort for the first day or two. So maybe exercising them first, give them that 10 minutes to recover. That will help set things up for success for you guys. Okay, so that's exercise. Scent games is another great one to do. And if they like to play fetch is a wonderful way to do it. Speaking of which, they don't really have a lot of toys. One of them is kind of a bit of a toy hoarder. I think Sadie or Millie. I thought you said Millie is a little bit of a toy hoarder. Dogs need to chew when they're stressed, and especially like a dog named Baxter, he really needs stuff to chew on. So getting them some chew toys, antlers, nyla bones, real bones, amaro bones, and you can have stuffies because aside from one of them, I think Sadie will destroy it, but the rest of the dogs didn't like those. Little dogs like stuffies. Now be careful, the squeaker emulates the little sound baby bunny rabbits are make when they are being killed. So if your dog's squeaking, you have a terrier, and you let them squeak, they're kind of practicing killing little babies. That might not be what you want. So just get them without the squeaker if that's the case. Okay, now for Baxter, because he spends time in his kennel, and don't let the other dogs go in the kennel. I think Sadie is actually taking the treats I've dropped in. That's okay for now. But don't let them go in each other's kennels. That's their fiefdom. So basically, we'd want Baxter to practice being in the kennel calm. Now, Baxter goes in the kennel when people come over because he has a tendency to bite them. He bit me once, and it didn't break the skin, but it did not feel good. And so they put him there, and he just barks. And so what he's doing is practicing freaking out in there. We want him to practice being calm in there. So he needs to practice that when he's home alone. So one of the things you do is give him a bully bite, actually, and get those in the green spot and get some of those. You can drill a hole in the back side of it and zip it in his kennel towards the back. Some people also, his kennel's plastic, so sometimes it's hard to get too low. You might put a brick and zip it around the bricks. The idea is he can't take it out of the kennel and the door's open. So he goes in there, he gets to chew on it, good things are happening. He can't take it outside, and after a while he practiced being calm and feeling good inside his kennel. So after you practice that enough, then when you have guests come over, if you do put him in the kennel, before the guests come over, you put him in the kennel, you give him a bully stick, wait for him and kind of sit there and wait for him to get into the bully stick, then cover it with a drape. And again, these are things you should practice when nobody's coming in. So that's normal for him. And then what I would also do is turn the stereo on. I'm guessing the stereo is back under there. And so classical music is calming for dogs with down tempo. Don't use reggae, or reggae is good actually. Don't use jazz or hard metal or talk. Don't leave talk radio on or talk TV. That makes them amped up. So what we might want to do when we have guests come over, set him up for success, help him practice behavior, being calm in the kennel. So we put him in the kennel, he gets to chew a bully stick, we cover it with a blanket or something, and then we start playing classical music. And there's nobody else here. He can't smell them, he can't hear them. Now he's used to doing that. Then we have somebody coming over, we put him in the kennel, we give him a bully stick, we cover it up, we play classical music, and then our friend comes in. So the music might be able to mask some of and he's also practiced being in there being calm. Now, some of the other stuff that I talked about should hopefully help with him, because I think all the dogs think that in one capacity or another that they are the guard dog. And so they try to sit in a higher spot, he tries to hump, and different things along those lines. So we need them to see the humans are in charge. Your services are no longer required when it comes to security dog. I want you to do things that I'm going to pay you for. And I'll talk about that in a sec. But before we get to that, I want to talk about other rules that we can incorporate. So one of the first rules I usually suggest is not allowing the dogs on the furniture, because the higher a dog sits, the more rank or status they have. Sitting here says we are peers. Sitting here says I have more authority than the humans. So I would take away the furniture for at least 90 days, because it takes about 6 days to form a behavior pattern. That's okay, she's fine. You don't have to apologize. We feel bad if a dog falls or something like that and hits, we want to pet him. Remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing. Pet an excited dog, you make it more excited. A fearful dog, more fearful. Aggressive dog, more aggressive. So you can lay your hand on them. They do associate touch with affection. But as soon as you start petting them, you're going to amplify whatever they're doing. So, all right, so the first rule I suggest is no furniture for at least 90 days or as long as the problem's going on. You can always go to their level. They just can't come to your level. Get those X mats, put those down here and there, so that'll protect your space. I would also recommend, this isn't a rule, but I would recommend the Guardian does a little bit, and I'm looking at the car, they got dinged and hailed just like I did, unfortunately. So basically what you want to do is maintenance. The dogs like looking out the window, and they appear to be looking down, and they think they bark, and every time they bark at things that pass by, they think they caused the thing to leave. So otherwise it was going to come in and steal their stuff. So what you want to do is get a little piece of paper and just put it on, we have a big window, and then on the other windows, and if they scrape it off, put it on the outside of the window. You have an overhang, it should last. And then for about 3 months, every time they run to the window to bark at people, they can't see. So they can't see if there's somebody there or not, and they can't see if the barking makes them go away. After a while, after a while, they'll get out of that habit. Now, something I talked about petting, you want to try to pet a dog under the chin, not on top of the head, but you can pet him anywhere else. You can scratch here, here. If all things are equal, I'd prefer to pet here, but if it's not convenient, you can scratch their butt too. Just don't ever reach over their head. Okay, other rules we talked about. You have to sit before and that when he does that, I would say kisses when he does that, and that can be kisses. My dogs, if I say kisses, that means lick my skin. If I say love, that means kiss me right here. So every time they kiss me right there, I'd say love. That's passive training. I promise we're going to talk about that in a minute. So, okay, so for other rules, shouldn't be allowed eating. Make sure the human's eating first. I talked about that one, and then they're going to eat in order of their rank. That's an important one. After about a month, they'll be on autopilot. They want to go outside. Another rule is you have to sit at the door. I tell you to sit one time. If you don't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away and I sit down in the area nearby. Make sure you're seated, and I wait 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back to the door and tell them again to sit. If they don't sit this time, I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes. Next time I sit down for 4 minutes, and so on. Eventually, one of them at least will sit down. Let's say that he sits down. Well, I open the door, let him out, and close him, and block, not let the other dogs out. I'm paying for performance. I ask for a sit. The smallest thing you do as a dog, if you can't be bothered to sit, I can't be bothered to open the door. But as soon as you sit, man, the door opens and you get permission to go outside. That will train the dog to go sit at the door as its way of saying, I like to go outside. Eventually, do it in both directions. Sitting to ask for attention is much more polite than barking at you, pawing at you, or jumping up on your lap. Nothing wrong with the dog being on your lap if you invite the dog. The dog jumps up on its own, it can be a way of claiming you or defending your lap. This is my territory, and growling at the other dogs. So if I had a dog in my lap and it was baring its teeth, growling at the other dogs, it might lose that privilege. Now, baring the teeth or growling is not aggression. It's important to understand that. A lot of people think it's aggression, and they punish or correct the dog for doing it. If the dog's scared, it would growl. If it doesn't like something, it might bare its teeth. It's not saying I'm going to be aggressive. It's saying if you continue along this line, eventually you'll get the teeth. So it's really the opposite. And if you punish your dog for growling or baring teeth, it'll say, that's fine. I won't give any warning. I'll just go straight to a bite, which is the last thing we want. So if your dog does do that, they're trying to get in the kennel because there's some treats in there, and he closed the door. Awesome. So, all right. So the door is another one. Shouldn't be allowed in the kitchen when we're preparing food. Shouldn't be allowed any humans that are eating. We actually have a little exercise out here. So when you're eating, since we kind of, the family here kind of is on different shifts. And so they're kind of eating at separate times. So when one of you eating, sit here or there, put all the dogs away except for one, and the other person out there enforces a visible line. So you can put painter's tape down. Sometimes it's easy to see from your kitchen to your dining room. It's easy to see there's a line there. But if not, don't be afraid to put painter's tape down. And then the dog, you stop enforcing at the line. And again, the invisible boundary or the structured feeding will show you how to do that. So instead of just when you're eating and the dog's here and you're shoving the dog off, no. Hey, babe, I'm going to eat. Can we practice establishing invisible boundaries? So I sit down there and I eat, and my partner is enforcing the boundary with one dog. We do it with one dog at a time until one dog is doing really well. Once he's automatically staying behind the line, then I would start practicing with the next dog. Not for the same meal, for multiple meals. And so eventually, you'll get two dogs that know to stay behind the line. Then you bring your two best dogs together. Now you're doing it with two dogs at the same time. And then eventually you bring your third, fourth, and you work your way back up to the real world situation. But first we teach them how we want them to behave. We practice it. We reward them for doing what we want. And after a while, the dog wants to do what we want. So if you eat and I sit over here behind the line, eventually I might get a treat or reward. Sure, that's a good deal. I understand the compensation. Otherwise, one dog gets closer, another dog gets even closer, another dog gets even closer. Dogs might fight each other because food is called a primary reinforcer. They need it. And so it very quickly happens. I've seen people, I had one client, she had 3 labs, and they were buddies, and they hunted together and had no problems. One day, and it was coming, it just once it reaches a tipping point, and then those dogs are tearing flesh off of each other, and they couldn't have them in the same room together. And the woman was just, but they've been friends for 5 years, until. So even if you have 5 dogs here, and there's a lot of energy here, so stuff can go wrong. I'm seeing her do it a little bit. Licking the lips can be a sign of stress. Also, ears going back can be a sign of anxiety or uncomfort. One of the things I tell people to do is look at your dog when it's in what we call a balanced frame of mind. It's not excited, it's not scared, it's just neutral. And once you see the dog in a neutral, look at where their ears are, look at how they're carrying their head, where their pupil dilation, how their ears are positioned, where their tail is, and their overall body mechanic. Once you can read your dog neutral, then when it's really excited, look at the changes in those dynamics, or where the ear is at. And eventually you'll be able to read my dog's nervous, anxious, fearful, whatever it is. And then you can lay your hand on the dog or increase the distance between them and what they're reacting to, or help them practice salute. I'm just saying they're all going to eventually congregate over there when I won't be able to take a picture. I tried to take a picture of all 5 of them together. I don't think I did a very good job. We'll see what kind of results I get. Those are examples of rules. Look for other opportunities to rules. If you're playing fetch with the dog, maybe the dog has to drop the ball before you pick it up and throw it, or drop the ball and sit before you do it. So there's a whole bunch of different things. Or I have to sit at the door and then wait, and the door is open, and I have to wait for my permission word to go out. I also have a video on my website on how to teach your dog to wait and for permission to go out at an open door. So you can search for that as well. But the more that we help them practice self-restraint and self-control, Baxter has no practice of doing that. He sees something he doesn't like, he barks, lunges at it, and nips it. He just loses control. And so we have to help these dogs practice, and the best way to do it is to create situations where we can help the dog practice that when we have time to give to it. Don't try to do it in the moment. That's when we typically try to do it. It's the worst time to learn anything is in the moment. Pick and choose your opportunities. Break it down into the easiest version possible and help the dog practice the step 1 over and over and over again. Don't go to step 2 until the dog is doing step 1 consistently right away. Then go to step 2. Practice step 2 exclusively until the dog is doing what you want for step 2. And then do all the individual steps in the easiest version possible. You've taught the dog during step A, I want this behavior, step B, I want this behavior, and so on. Now the dog knows. Most of my clients tell me the dog was being bad. He was so naughty. I ask them, have you taught the dog how to behave? And they look at me like I'm crazy. What do you mean? The dog should just know to stay away from the table. No, not unless we teach them. So we have to break it down in individual steps, create a motivation. So if you do what I want, you'll get something afterwards. That's really classical conditioning. Okay, so that's examples. Those are some examples of rules. I'm getting excited. What do you call it? Let me see. We also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if I want to pet the dog, or if the dog comes up and nudges, barks at, paws at, or jumps on my lap, it's telling me what to do. Pleasure me. Well, if I pleasure the dog, then it's like, yes, I'm in charge. The human is my masseuse. So next time the dog comes up and nudges you or barks at you or does something like that, give it a counter order. Tell it to sit. If it's already sitting, ask it to sit over here or ask it to lay down. Do not ask it to shake. So sitting and laying down are more subordinate positions. It's a good idea to ask your dog to do one or both, either one of those before you give them what they want. That helps them practice kind of being a little bit more humble, if you can think about it in the dog world, and respectful. So the dog nudges me, gives me an order. I don't follow the dog's orders. Leaders give orders or tell. Followers take orders or ask. So when the dog tells me what to do, nothing happens, other than I give it a counter order and tell it to sit. If it sits within 3 seconds, I pet it under the chin and say the word sit. If it doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I show the dog I got something else to do. I pull out my phone, I check some emails, I watch some TV, I read a magazine, I make out with my wife, whatever you want to do. So the dog understands the world does not revolve around me. He's just like, oh, if I don't sit, he'll pet me anyways. Oh shit, he's making out with his wife. Damn. I guess I'm not the center of the universe. After a while, maybe I should get with him. Maybe when he asks me to sit, I should sit. I have motivation now to do it. But if you're going to pet me anyways, why would I sit? Why would I come? I get paid whether I do my job or not. Imagine how you would be if you got paid whether you did your job or not. You'd be a horrible employee. It's kind of what we have going on here to a certain extent. So we're going to tell the dog to sit. If it sits, then we pet it under its chin, say the word sit, and only the word sit. Remember, they hear the first word, so no adjectives. If he doesn't sit, find something else to do. And then after a while, if he comes up again, tell him the same thing. Now remember to use the watchword paycheck. If you suspect someone's petting without a purpose, even if that person did it right, they should stop petting, tell the dog to sit or lay down again, and say, actually, when you open the door, he stood up and I continued petting him. That's allowed, but thank you because I do forget to pet without a purpose. We also talked about passive training. Passive training is petting the dog when it voluntarily offers you the behavior that you want. I would come up with a command word for each dog to eat. So I have 4 dogs. I say grub for one, chow for one, feast for one, and lasagna for another. So I like fun words. So come up with a funny word, your favorite meal. And so every time one of them eats, it's chimichanga. The next one it's sushi. The next one it's meatball. The next one it's lobster, whatever it is. And so for 4 months, every time that dog takes his first bite of food, he hears the word lobster. After a while, lobster means I get to go eat. And don't feed your dog lobster. I don't think they like shellfish, and it's expensive. So you can do that for anything. They bring you a toy, name all your individual toys. Now, all bones can be bones, all antlers can be antlers, but if it's something specific, you have a little thing that looks like a hot dog, call it wiener, or whatever you want to do. And so the idea is the dog, you have a better vocabulary. When my dogs drink out of the bowl, I say happy hour. Now, do I need my dogs to drink? No, but what if I'm on a hike and there's no water, there's not going to be any water for around? And I come across the stream, I can say hike and the dog knows what I want. If I say drink, well, I don't know what that means. And so coming up with the things that your dog does on its own is a great way to mark it and reward it. Potty is a good example. I asked the guardian what the word was potty. She says, you want a potty? You want to go outside? Well, those are 2 different things. So every time the dog goes out the door, I would say the word outside. Every time it pees or poops, I would say potty. At this rate, I'd probably change it to Putin or another word. And so every time they pee or poop, you say, let's say there's Billy with somebody that owes you money. You don't like Billy, so every time the dog goes poop, we're going to say Billy. And so after I say Billy, the dog goes like this, and yeah, Billy, the dog has to go take a Billy. If not, and then you say Billy, the dog goes like this, no, outside. So now you've been able to separate. Do you have to potty or do you need to go outside? Well, if you have to potty, I'll get up and but I'm tired. I've been working for 10 hours. And if you just want to go outside, buddy, you're going to have to wait. So it gives you the ability to do that. Probably be a good idea to take them outside. Like I said, they need some exercise. I showed the guardians how to use the dog bed, 3 different capacities. First one is we throw, and I would probably have the dogs separate. So do it one at a time. So I throw the treat, the dog licks it up, and I say the word Estes. Put a little Post-it note on the credenza there so you remember what it is. And then wait for the dog to walk away, throw another treat. As long as it has 1 or more paws on it, and when it licks up, we say Estes. Do that for 10 treats. Then when the dog's not paying attention, throw another one there. and then don't say a word and just wait and observe. When the dog goes over and licks it up, say Estes. Third way I do it is I lead him over there and I put him in a sit or an LAY in it, and I pop the treat and say Estes as well. These are 3 ways to entice the dog to go there. Then after this, now we're going to pay the dog for going there. So I'm watching TV and when the dog goes over there, I might quietly pull out a treat and throw the treat. So now when I go to the dog bed, it rains treats. I always like to do a dog bed when we take away the furniture because it gives them a place to go. The best place to put it is right in front of the TV because we watch TV, they think we're looking at them, and that's comforting and calming for them. If there's one dog that won't get it consistently enough, then have the other dogs outside and work with that dog. You might work with them all individually so they all know that Estes means go there. And then I asked the guardian earlier what the dogs do to make them happy, and they struggled to answer. They like it when I go to Estes. They like it when I eat. They like it when I go outside. They like it when I poop. They like it when I bring them. Sit, come, lay down. Now the dog knows what we want. Dogs want to please us. We just usually do a crappy job of communicating what we actually want. And matter of fact, the way we do it often conditions them to do the opposite. So the dog's outside having a great time, barking at the squirrel. I say, come, it comes inside. I close the door. It's like, well, shoot, I was having a great time. I listened to you, and the fun is over now. So I don't like that. Well, passive training takes care of that. Every time the dog comes to you, you can say come. So now 1 out of 99% of the time does the dog actually do that. That's demand barking. This dog is used to it, so tell him to sit.
Sit.
Her to sit. And she doesn't sit, and only once. So maybe say repeat or rerun if you're using the word multiple times. So you have to tell her, it's my way or the highway. And I'm not going to punish you, but you just don't get anything. And I had one client who had terminal cancer. She was very young too. And her dog developed demand barking while she's going through this, which is a horrible thing. I'm definitely not going to reward the jumping up. And so her awesome boyfriend bought her noise-canceling headphones that were plugged into their TV. So as soon as the dog started barking, she put them on and watched TV. She goes, within a week, the dog stopped demand barking because I didn't even blink anymore. If you blink, you're like, oh, shut up, or any of those things. It's validating. For dogs, any attention is validating. That's why you don't want to ever pet a fearful dog like I talked about earlier. All right, I'm trying to think, is there anything else that we want to cover?
Don't ask.
How about you, Baxter? Baxter's giving me the stink eye. He's like, man, I've been in a kennel barking you for 3 hours. Now you're talking on the couch. If you get up, I'm going to bite you right in the ankle. Kisses. Now, one thing to be careful about, I saw the guardians were kissing. She was pursing her lips. Dogs there's nothing that can pass cold-wise from us, but they can pass parasites. So you're letting your dog lick your lips or an open cut. I read an article on Yahoo. This one woman loved her dogs. Dog licked an open wound. She fell ill. They had to put her in a coma. When she woke up, they had cut off her arms and her legs because she had gangrene essentially in them. So don't ever let your dog, if the dog's mouth is clean, it's cleaner than cats' mouths. They're still both fully filthy. You shouldn't, there's a difference between cleaner and sterile. And dog's mouth are anything but sterile. So if you want to do the kisses, that's fine. Just, I usually, when a dog kisses my lips, I usually pull them in together so I'm not getting any of that saliva on there. All right, well, this is the roadmap to success. I'm laughing at Lenny over there. He's like going like this.
Newt next to you.
Yes, and this little bed warmer. Also, remember the Cosequin. So glucosamine supplement. I can get it with chondroitin. The ones I would get are Cosequin. You can get that on Amazon. Get the regular ones. They look like little milk bones. And if you give your dogs milk bones, you shouldn't. They have cancer-causing ingredients in them. Milk bones, pepperoni, bacon strips, and sausages all have known cancer-causing ingredients. Speaking of cancer, half of all dogs die of cancer. Broccoli and carrots ward off 2 types of cancer that are prevalent in dogs. So right there, the dog would lose if it had been invited up. We haven't done the rules yet. But remember, if you snap or pet or correct, losing the access point is more of a consequence for the dog than correcting, snapping or the rest of those things, which is actually rewarding. And it has to be, as the guardian's talking about, it's got to be bang, bang. 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog, and there's a huge difference between 1 second and 3 seconds. So you want to try, boom. So I barked, boom, I lost my privilege of being on the couch. That makes, it'll take him 5, 10, 50 times before he recognizes that. That's why it's important. We're diligent and we're consistent. After a while, I was like, I bark, I'm immediately off. That's a form of operant conditioning. After a while, so my barking gets me ejected. Cool, I'll just sit up here and growl. And remember, we don't punish for growling. Okay, well, all right, so we have, help me out with the names again. Lenny, Millie, Baxter, Newty,
Sadie.
And Sadie. Yes. Hey, buddy. Good time to wake up. And this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.